Sylvia Plath is one of the most famous and influential poets of all time. But many of you could be wondering why that is, especially if you don't have much experience with poetry, or perhaps you do have experience with poetry, but you've looked into Sylvia Plath and you couldn't quite make heads or tails of it. So I want to help those people out by going through what those of us who love Sylvia Plath find in her poems. Or at least what I find. Maybe there are other things that other people prioritize over what I prioritize. It's a bit of a subjective art form, but hopefully I can help you into Sylvia. So to start off with, I want to have a look at her intensity, her bombast. She is a poet who is unafraid to essentially shout. She wants to be emotional. She wants you to feel those emotions that she's having, and she doesn't want to be subtle about it. This is a poet who is willing to use any imagery she needs, any wording she needs, anything she needs to dig into you, the emotions that she's feeling. So let's have a look at an example of this in the poem Lady Lazarus. It's a take on the story of Lazarus in the Bible, where Jesus brings Lazarus back to life. But Sylvia is talking about herself and herself coming back to life after trying to die. Dying is an art, like everything else. I do it exceptionally well. I do it so it feels like hell. I do it so it feels real. I guess you could say I've a call. It's easy enough to do it in a cell. It's easy enough to do it and stay put. It's the theatrical, come back in broad day to the same place, the same face, the same brute, amused shout, a miracle that knocks me out. So we see there that Sylvia is basically bragging to us about this experience. It's a very theatrical, she even uses the word theatrical, it's a very theatrical outburst. I do it so it feels like hell. I do it so it feels real. I guess you could say I have a call. So those three lines together all rhyme in a consonantal way. So the consonants rhyme. Hell, they all end in l. Hell, real call. And then cell in the next line as well. Many poets would shy away from this sort of speech where the poet is building up this huge intensity, emphasizing the power of what they're saying, emphasizing the emotions, but not Sylvia. Sylvia brings us right into it and is happy to just be completely out in the open with her bombasticness. The next element I want to look at is progression via association. In the poem, The Arrival of the Bee Box, she is talking to us about this bee box that she has received, full of bees because she's a beekeeper. And she asks us, how can I let them out? It is the noise that appalls me most of all, the unintelligible syllables. So right now, we're in a very clear sort of description. We've received a bee box. It's very noisy. She can't let them out. She doesn't understand what they're saying. They're buzzing, buzzing, buzzing. To association, she takes us to a Roman mob. She associates the bees with these Roman mob, especially when we think of Roman mob, and we're a poet, we think of Julius Caesar by Shakespeare, where the Roman mob goes against the murderers of Brutus who've been killed, but then comes around to their way of thinking as they talk to the mob, and then Antony comes up and turns them back against the conspirators, completely against the conspirators, and they go and kill an innocent person because he's got the same name as one of the conspirators. Through association, she draws these two things together, the bees and the mob, through the unintelligible syllables that she's hearing, this rah, 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 rah. It is like a Roman mob, small, taken one by one, but my God, together. Each buzzing is small, but together they're all huge, just like the rumbling in a crowd. I lay my ear to furious Latin. Previously, she said like a Roman mob. She used a simile. Now she's just gone straight ahead and said, well, they're speaking Latin. She's hearing these bees buzz. Well, it might as well be Latin, right? But I am not Caesar. So we've gone from this buzzing to a Roman mob to Latin, and now she's saying, I am not Caesar. Like if that's the mob, then surely I'm Caesar, but I'm not Caesar. I have simply ordered a box of maniacs. They can be sent back. They can die. I need feed them nothing. I am the owner. She's not the Caesar. She's the owner and she can do whatever she likes. Caesar, you might think, has the power to do whatever he wants, but actually Roman citizens couldn't be taken away. They could not just be murdered. They were Roman citizens and therefore had certain inalienable rights. What we see here is this development of association. She associates one thing with another thing, with another thing, with another thing, and develops through the poem in this manner. Next, I want to look at the dark imagery she uses. She was someone who suffered from depression throughout her life. She wanted to express to us that, make us feel that depression, the chaos inside of her head, through the use of very dark imagery. In her final poem before she died, Edge, we can see this dark imagery especially. She says, "The woman is perfected. Her dead body wears the smile of accomplishment. The illusion of a Greek necessity flows in the scrolls of her toga. Her bare feet seem to be saying, 'We have come so far, it is over.' Each dead child coiled, a white serpent, one at each little pitcher of milk now empty. She has folded them back into her body as petals of a rose close when the garden stiffens and odours bleed from the sweet, deep throats of the night flower. The moon has nothing to be sad about, staring from her hood of bone. She is used to this sort of thing. Her blacks crackle and drag." So in this poem, we can see she's picturing this dead body, this naked, dead woman whose children are still alive and sucking at her breasts. She actually calls the breasts pitchers of milk. She objectifies those breasts. You know, they're not living things anymore. They're just pitchers of milk. They're empty. They don't even have milk. They're pitchers of milk that are empty. So she's viewing this dead body and she's not viewing it as human anymore. It's purely a sort of corpse. She sees the beauty in that corpse. She has folded them back into her body as petals of a rose closed when the garden stiffens and odours bleed from the sweet, deep throats of the night flower. And then she treats the moon as this sort of witness of everything. And the moon has seen it all. The moon has seen all of this dark imagery and isn't affected by it anymore. Her blacks crackle and drag. Now, sometimes the imagery that she uses becomes problematic. She's always keen to use whatever tools she can to increase the intensity of her poetry. Now, she was a child of ethnic Germans in America during World War II. She had a very complicated relationship, therefore, with her ethnic heritage and was pretty devastated when she learnt about that, as I'm sure most good people were. She was devastated to find out what had happened in the Holocaust at the end of the war, to see the videos of the concentration camps, to hear the accounts of the victims. And this impacted her mind for the rest of her life. She ended up, when she most wanted to express the chaos within her mind, she often ended up using imagery from the Holocaust, imagery of concentration camps, objectifying Jews as just this thing that she could bring out as this symbol of her own suffering, which she really had no right to as someone who was not Jewish or from any of the minority groups that had been oppressed during the Holocaust. And this can feel very, very bad. It's not great. But the truth is, you do need an intense imagery, an intense association that's going to make people feel an intense suffering. It is true that you can't go much better than the Holocaust. So the problem we have is when she does it, it does work. It really, really works. It's awkward. We have these poems that are some of the greatest poems ever written, and they're doing things they probably really shouldn't be doing. The poet Stevie Smith has a line that I'm quite fond of where she's referencing another poet, Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and something he did. And she says, "It was not right of Coleridge. In fact, it was wrong. But often we all do wrong." And I think that's what we have to think about with Sylvia Plath, with these Holocaust references and also references to other groups like African Americans. It's not pretty, it's not nice. It does work technically, so we have to, and we can't really excise them from the poems. We have to just except that she did. Let me just read one of the more famous and egregious Holocaust references in Sylvia Plath. This is from her poem Daddy, where she deals with the impact of her father's death when she was a child and the fact that he was German. She sort of implies he was a Nazi, but there's no evidence of that. I never could talk to you. Your tongue stuck in my jaw. It stuck in a barbed wire snare. I could hardly speak. I thought every German was you and the language obscene. An engine, chuffing me off like a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. The snows of the Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna are not very pure or true. With my gypsy ancestress and my weird luck and my tarot pack, I may be a bit of a Jew. So there it is. That's one of the more egregious examples of her using Holocaust imagery to depict the chaos in her own mind and the chaos relating to her own identity as a German. If this has interested you, if you're thinking, well, I like some of this, I would like to get more into Sylvia Plath, I would recommend buying the selected edition of her poems. You could also grab the collected edition over here. This is a fantastic book. This has all the poems that she ever wrote after 1956. Prior to that, we have a selection of 50 poems she wrote before that. That was her juvenilia period before 1956, where she was sort of developing her abilities. So we have a bit of a selection of that. But all of the later poems we have, they're dated because she always dated her poems when she started them and when she finished them, so we can follow through from start to finish and see how she developed as a poet, which is pretty awesome. But there's a lot of poems in here, and a lot of them she wouldn't have chosen to publish herself. She was very selective, whereas this has all of the stuff she ever wrote. So the quality is going to be a little variable, unlike the selected where they've chosen the absolute best of the poems. I don't always agree with that. Like there are some poems that I think should be in the selected and they aren't. It's all subjective, but you're going to get a much better average quality of poem in the selected than the collected. So if you're not fully sold on Sylvia Plath yet, if you think you probably like her, but you're not like obsessed with her, you haven't fallen absolutely in love with her poetry yet, I would suggest grabbing the selected and just having that really high quality where you can go from poem to poem and every one of them is amazing and enjoyable.